All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to day 30 of Sefer Hamitzvot. Today, we are going to learn positive mitzvah 14. Just to recap from yesterday, because it was Sunday and we missed it, that was positive mitzvah 17, which is that we're commanded that every king, so a true king, a Jewish king who sits in rulership over the Jewish people, shall write a Sefer Torah for himself. A king had a Sefer Torah and it had to be with him at all times. In short, as a sign to show that you're not a king just representing yourself. You're a king representing God, and you have to rule based on Hashem. Okay, but today's mitzvah, 14th mitzvah, is that we're commanded in the actions involving tzitzis, tzitzit, whatever you want to call it. The source of this commandment in Devarim is Va'asu lahem tzitzis, v'gomer v'nasnu al tzitzis hakanaf b'sil tchelas, which means it shall be to you as tzitzis, and they shall attach a thread of blue on the fringe of each corner. Okay. So the way the mitzvah works is that if you have a garment, obviously this only applies to men, I'll just explain why in a moment, like later. But if you have a garment that has 4 corners, then you're obligated to put tzitzis, which are strings, on each corner. There are white strings, and the mitzvah is that you twine into them blue strings, which is the word for it is tchelas. And just to jump ahead for a second, we don't know what the true color of tchelas is, and that's why you will see, and that's why there's a discrepancy in opinions. And of course, in this realm for sure, it's a beautiful part of being in the Jewish people is that different ways work. But most hold that because we don't know the true color of tchelas, we don't do that today. Of course, when Mashiach comes, we will find out, but you do see some people that have the blue strung into their tzitzis strings, because different people hold that, I guess, we do know what the color is, or we're going to do the best of our ability to match it up. So Rambam goes into a discussion because you might think that there's two different mitzvahs. So there's the mitzvah of the white string and the mitzvah of intertwining the blue strings. And he says that indeed they're only one mitzvah. Why might it be confusing? And how do we know that it's in fact only one mitzvah? Basically, it's very interesting because if you only do it with the white mitzvah, with the white strings, because you don't have the blue strings, that's considered a full mitzvah. Done, complete, you're doing it right. If you're doing it with only the blue strings and you do not have the white strings, also done, also good. So even though that's the case, it's still considered one mitzvah. And one of the ways we know that is because it says, V'haya lachem tzitzis, it shall be to you in the singular, and that's how we know that it's one mitzvah. Okay, women are exempt. Why? Because it's time-bound. Why is it time-bound? Because it says, Ure'isem also, and you should see it. So you have to naturally be able to see it, i.e. during the day, right? We might be able to see at night, but it's not natural light. It's either electricity, or in the olden days it was a candle, but it's not naturally to be able to see it. That's what makes it a mitzvah only obligated during the day. So because it's time bound, that's why women are not obligated. Is a person that's blind obligated if they can never see it? The answer is yes. Why? Because others can see. Does this make sense? And I'm just tapping into a different conversation because it's interesting. But the short of it is that sometimes we understand the mitzvah logically and sometimes we don't. And a critical part of keeping the Torah and our connection to Hashem is it's important and necessary to try to understand the mitzvahs because they're important, they matter. But it's just as important, if not more important, to also say, I'm not going to understand everything. And not only is that okay, but I completely embrace it. So here's just one time where we can focus on that for a second. So one other interesting nuance is that some in the Alter Rebbe holds by like this, so the Chabad custom is that even though we don't have the tchelas, the blue, which twines into the white, we do still create the coils. So there's certain knots. I remember when my son, if you like order tzitzis or whatever, you buy them, they'll say like, how do you want it made, basically. And the Chabad way is that you make it as if there was glue, you would coil it that way. So that's just interesting fun fact. What's the idea of the mitzvah, essentially? Similar to what we said about tefillin and about mezuzah, is that it is a constant reminder to you of Hashem's commandments. How do we see that? Rashi explains that the gematria, the numerical value of tzitzis, is the number of 600, right? Tzaddik is 90, Yod is 10, Tzaddik is 90, Yod is 10, and Tav is 400. So that's a total of 600. The 8 strands is 8, and then the 5 knots, that's a total of 613 there. They are symbolic, they show us, they constantly remind you, they're right there in your face of the 613 mitzvos. They align you, they remind you, they focus you. And there's an amazing story in the Gemara of a man who was with a prostitute, and the way she worked, she was like the best prostitute in town, and she basically had them, she would like climb on levels, and she had them climbing after her. And as he was climbing, his tzitzis kept on whacking him in the face. And basically that's what stopped him from doing sin. So literally this thing, this, measly piece of cloth with those strings popping out are literally gonna avoid sin for you in your reality. About the night thing, so let's say Chabad definitely wears tzitzis at night, and I know most do, because first of all, you're allowed to fulfill it at night. It doesn't say that you're not allowed to fulfill at night, just that you don't have to. But what don't you have to do? You don't have to keep tzitzis on night garments. And basically what's explained is that we don't have separate night garments. Some people wear pajamas during the day. Raise your hand if that includes you. Yep. So even if you're wearing even if it's night, if you're wearing something that you maybe could be wearing during the day as well, especially because we don't always, it's not like as soon as it's daytime, we switch garments. So that's why the mitzvah applies to as night as well, or could apply to at night. And just again, to tie it all together, the reason why women are not obligated, besides for the fact, from a logical standpoint, is because it's not a time-bound mitzvah, but also because the same idea, women have a natural sign. Same reason we don't get an aliyah, same reason we don't wear tefillin, we have a natural sign. We don't need the strings to show us, we naturally know. So anyway, that's the mitzvah of tzitzis. I should say one more very important thing. Even though you are technically only obligated to wear tzitzis when you're wearing a garment that has 4 corners, but the Chachamim wanted us to always wear tzitzis, and basically that's why we have a separate garment with 4 corners that has tzitzis on it, and you wear it besides for the shirt or whatever else you're wearing. So, interesting thing to note, as you may know, that the Rebbe has 10 mitzvahim. And over the years, he introduced their campaigns, essentially. Obviously, we want every Jew to learn about all the mitzvahs and keep them, but there are specific campaigns for various reasons the Rebbe really wanted. The most famous of them, of course, is tefillin. That's why when the boys go on mitzvahim, they're putting on tefillin. And for women, it's encouraging Shabbos candles. And there's 10, like I said. Tzitzis is not included. And who knows why, but it's interesting to note that in the beginning of the Rebbe's leadership and with the previous Rebbe, there was a big outcry that this is something that we should bring awareness to and encourage people. So it's a big mitzvah, of course. It's one of the 613. I know when you see a man wearing his tzitzis proudly, it almost is more of a statement than the yarmulke, because it's like, you got strings flying out of your pants, and I think it's a beautiful thing. So if you're a man, be proud. If you're a woman, encourage the men in your life to do this mitzvah. And at the very least, we learned about it. So that's a big deal too. All right. See you all tomorrow. Have an amazing day. And don't forget, there are 613 mitzvahs. That is the mitzvah of tzitzis. Bye-bye.